Any comments that you want to make, please put them in the chat box, and I will remind Jennifer to look in the chat box so we can read them and then answer some of your questions. If you do answer a question or give input, you also have a chance to win a $15 Amazon gift card tonight. So let's get started. So the first question I have is, can you give a brief overview of the drug and alcohol policy for students?
Yep,
and how might it be different for on or off campus students?
All right. And so our sanctions for drug and alcohol range, most of them start with like illegal possession, using, distributing, manufacturing, or selling, including under the influence of alcohol as well. But that includes drugs as far as the distribution of such. Supplying alcohol to minors is a violation. So as students kind of think, you know what, I'm 21, I can't get in trouble now. That is one that can be violated, as well as DUI or public intoxication and the things that might go with that. Excessive consumption is one that a lot of students are probably our most violated charge is possession or use. Second to then excessive alcohol, which excessive alcohol is somebody who is intoxicated and could be found, passed out. It could be somebody who is acting out of common nature that obviously is under the influence of alcohol. So excessive alcohol consumption is in that piece. Anything as far as distributing, like I said, possessing that would violate Commonwealth laws of Pennsylvania, as far as the liquor code and the university regulations, which is 8018 and AD Administrative Directive 8033. So those are the two pieces that go with alcohol and drugs. The other piece in there that might fall towards the residence halls that might be a little bit different than off campus or outside of the halls is in the possession of alcohol or in the possession of drugs. And so those are two charges that somebody could have being in the presence of. And so say there's a room or group of students who are hanging out, somebody isn't drinking based on what's determined by university police, but is in the presence. And so you have a choice as soon as you get to a room or as soon as you know that there's alcohol present, you have a choice to leave or not even step into the room in the first place. And so that can be a charge that is an outcome, but in the presence of alcohol or in the presence of drug is something that's different. Otherwise, most of them are the same for both on campus and off. And make sure that as we answer and talk, if you guys have questions, unmute yourself. Feel free to chime in anytime.
Okay. That was a knock at me. Who is University Police in charge of, and where does Logan Township take over?
So we are in charge of any students, faculty, staff, or any visitors that are on campus. Logan Township, or actually the campus is surrounded by both Logan Township and Altoona City. We have mutual aid agreements with both jurisdictions, which basically means that we can handle calls in their jurisdiction if they are unable to, if they're tied up on other calls, and they can also handle calls on campus if we ask them to. We work very well with both of them. As a matter of fact, most of the officers here have worked for the city of Altoona, me included. And we actually have been asked recently by both Altoona City and Logan Township to do traffic control or like to monitor traffic. And, with the stop signs, if you see us sitting there, they've asked us to help with traffic enforcement in their jurisdictions.
But so like Nittany Point is technically Logan Township, correct, right? Have you ever gotten called to go to Nittany Point?
Yes, we go up there, if they're tied up on another call and they can't go, we go up there. We go up there a lot to assist them on calls.
Okay, so that kind of brings me to the next part of this question. Are university police real police?
Yes, we are. We are a full service police department. We're not security, definitely a full service police department. We have all of the same enforcement as regular municipal police officers. We do the training. There's mandatory update training every year that we have to go through. And then there's also other trainings that we go through throughout the year. We actually train more so than some of the other departments I've worked for.
Cool.
So hold on a quick thing. So in addition to Logan Township being at Nittany Point, Another common piece, and Courtney, I'm going to answer your question in a second. Another piece that goes with that is the Liquor Control Board. And so the Liquor Control Board will, they're often at tailgates up at State College, but they do have a presence sometimes on at Nittany Point. And so a lot of times they're undercover. We have students that in the evenings will track back and forth to different parties or rooms. And I've had students where they've had a beer in their back pocket, or they've had, been in possession as they walk from to and from, and somebody approaches them. And so it could be a citation from the Liquor Control Board, which is a Pennsylvania entity of law enforcement. So just as a heads up there, they're not always in a uniform. They often will be in a regular plain clothing, but they can be present on a Saturday night up at Nittany Point, or if they feel that there's a need to be at another location, that they will. But so Courtney asked, since I'm 21, would I be responsible for people drinking under 21, even if I do not serve them?
So that would be for me. If we do have to have someone say that you supplied them with the alcohol, but if somebody's getting in trouble, you never know what they're going to say. So I would avoid being around them, just because you never know if somebody's going to accuse, or say, they don't want to get their friends in trouble, but they don't know you so well. They may say that you gave it to them.
Mm-hmm. And Courtney, I don't know where you live, but if you have another charge that I don't think we talk about this evening, but that is, give me a second. Oh, gollies, why do I draw a blank? So if you happen to live at Nittany Point and you host a party or a gathering, if you have minors who are there drinking, a charge could be a disorderly gathering for hosting the party like that, whether they are of age or not. Sometimes that as I get a citation from Logan Township that says there's a that this is the reason why we went there, there is the charge that we'll talk about as far as what courtside things happen. But then also there can be that depending on who's in your space, actually, if they come there to break up a party, that can go with it. Doesn't matter your age either, but they'll also look if there's minors in presence and if there's alcohol being consumed. Not knowing where you live, and that can happen anywhere, not just at any point. It just happens to be the relatively closest one where we see a lot of traffic. But yeah, I would just stay clear because you don't know how they're if they get caught, what's going to happen, especially if you're around or hosting in that way.
Yeah, I think that that's an important distinction too, because let's say you were hosting a party that had underage drinkers and it got busted, you would then be responsible for having the party and you would be the one to get the charge. We've seen several parties from Nittany Point in particular who the 4 residents get the disorderly gathering charge and all the rest of them are cleared out, just go about just broken up. So even if you did not, even if you said bring your own alcohol, you're still held responsible for the party and for the underage drinking that was at your residence. Yeah, but I think that's an important distinction there. It's obviously important you can't card everybody in your apartment, or that's not something that I think reasonably happens, but just taking those extra safety precautions and being responsible with who you're drinking with and around is something that I think is pretty reasonable that everybody can handle.
Yeah, I think though too, when I talk with students is that, it is your apartment ultimately, even though most people have their doors open and it's pretty much like a family, as some people put it, you're still responsible for any person in your space. And so if you don't know them, don't have them there. And if you know they're underage, that's your choice. So you could have asked them to leave at any time. Mm-hmm. Might be kind of cold, but that's how I explain it. So
yeah, again, that's just the consequence of that potential decision, for sure. Ready for the next one?
Go for it.
Okay. If I don't comply with university police, what can they even do about it?
So there's several different things, and it's pretty much situational. So just a couple basic situations. So if there is somebody that is resisting arrest and we are trying to make an in custody arrest, we are able to overcome that force of the resistance. So, if we have to go hands-on, we will. We obviously don't want to do that, but if we have to make the arrest, we will. If if somebody is refusing to identify themselves, we can take that person into custody and until we can find out who they are. So if we're investigating an incident, you know, and somebody's saying, I'm not telling you who I am, we can put them in handcuffs. The city of Altoona has a fingerprint scanner, can take them down there and fingerprint them and be able to find out that way. And then, you know, if you refuse, as a student, you're required to provide us with identification if asked. And if you don't do that, we can refer the person to the conduct office for sanctions.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I didn't know that, like, you had to comply. That's good to know. Okay. That also reminds me about fake IDs, which I know that we're not talking about right now, but I think there were several even last year who used a fake ID at a local liquor store, ran away, whatever, and then the police like came to you guys and said, hey, does this student exist? And you said, yeah, actually they do. And then they got in trouble with thinking they got away with it. I think that that was a pretty interesting one from last year.
Yeah, the local liquor stores and places that sell alcohol, they keep track of those things. And then, you know, if they have any kind of suspicion, they reach out to the proper folks, whether it's law enforcement or liquor control board, because they obviously don't want to lose their license and the ability to serve others. So they've reached out to us and we receive a citation and go that direction. I apologize. And so, yeah, it's one of those. We have students that have gotten caught with a fake because they've left their wallet behind. We've had students that have gotten caught because they pull out their ID and it comes out with it. You know, there's a variety of how those are found, but it is one that yes, we are aware that students have fakes. There is a charge and a sanction that go with that. And so, yes, fakes also fall into the category of all of the above.
Yeah,
Okay, so that kind of.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I know from working for the city, we had that pretty often. There's actually 3 different, and I'd have to look up the names of them. 3 sections that you can get if you're trying to buy alcohol with a fake ID. So 3 separate citations.
Wow, doesn't seem worth it. Okay, so that kind of goes into the next one. Can you tell me about the consequences of getting in trouble with substances on campus? And what if I'm underage?
You want me to start with this one?
Go for it.
Okay. So Penn State has a zero tolerance policy for drugs and alcohol on campus. A person can be charged with several different crimes depending on the situation. Some of those charges can be public drunkenness, underage drinking, disorderly conduct, possession of drugs, possession of paraphernalia, possession with intent to deliver drugs. Those are just a couple of them. If you plead guilty to or are found guilty of a crime, there's going to be a fine. You may be required to attend the AWARE class. And depending on the charges, you could get anywhere from probation up into jail time. You know, if you get charged with a crime, that is going to be on your record forever unless it's expunged, and it'll follow you around for the rest of your life. So if you're applying for, you know, you got arrested for possession of marijuana, that's a misdemeanor. Whenever you apply for jobs, it'll say, have you ever been charged with a misdemeanor? And that is something that you'll have to put on every job application.
So for campus wise, as far as substances on campus, like I said, our conduct office goes off referrals. And so as we receive a referral for university police, having that interaction for a substance on campus, then from there, we then look at, okay, what was found? Is it paraphernalia? If it was a substance itself, whether it be alcohol, I know that as far as underage and pieces of that, then we look at our charge codes and what it violates. And so after having a conversation, deciding after that conversation what charges should take place if there is responsibility found. And then once charges, which can range, like I said, any of those: excessive alcohol possession, paraphernalia, whatever it might be, distribution, then it looks to sanctions. And the sanctions are going to be an educational sanction as well as an administrative sanction, which the administrative sanction goes from the conduct warning up to suspension or expulsion, which could include loss of housing. and then the sanction also is an educational component. So it could have an educational course, such as the one that like Anna's responsible for, as far as related to alcohol or drugs, as well as community service, reflection papers. When it comes to the residence halls, most often every student that violates a policy, majority of the time is going to go under a housing review, which that housing review is like a kind of like a warning. There are some that I've had a student who within the last couple of years was caught with multiple bottles of alcohol. We're talking like 12 to 15 bottles of alcohol in their room, anywhere from beer to handles to babies to 750s, fifths or whatever it might be. And that, based on the amount of alcohol, looked at it and said, you know what, I don't think this environment's best for you. So instead of just the basic housing review warning, that was a loss of housing. And so it just depends on the situation. It depends on the amount. It depends on, multiple offenses or not. For that example with that student, it was the first time. And the fact that they had so much alcohol was the part that then had them, lose their housing. So every situation is different. However, we obviously are consistent with what we do in looking at comparison of cases and what should be issued and not. But so, yeah, you can have the housing review or a loss of housing, which is loss of your housing contract for either a duration or for the end of time. So it just depends on the situation. We do have 2 questions in our chat. I think I hopefully just answered the one for McKenna, as far as if someone's caught on campus drinking, what can it result in, and the restrictions of the university. And that can be both on and off campus, or on campus, like in a parking lot or a car. But then the loss of housing is added to the is onto the on-campus piece. But then, see here, Courtney asked, back to tailgating, can you get charges for open container? I know I see many people walking around with alcohol. You want to start with that, Amanda?
So I was trying to look up here. I've never charged anybody with the open container law. I was trying to look it up here quick to see if I can, to see the particulars. I know you can't have them in a car. As far as tailgating, are you talking about like at the football game?
University Park, yeah. I don't think that you do.
No, I believe they probably have an ordinance, or
Yeah.
with it being considered on private property, maybe they allow it there.
Yeah, so you can get an open container at University Park. It just depends on, most of the time, based on what I have learned so far, is if you're acting like just stupid, just like you're doing keg stands, you're acting intoxicated, most of the time they don't approach people unless they think that there's a lot of underage drinking, or there's a lot of, a lot of minors standing there. I've had students where they were sitting in a chair, somebody's tailgate chair, and there was an open container in like the arm of the chair, and they've walked up and been cited for an open container, and so it really just depends on the officers that do it, as well as how people are acting. Like I said, if there's a lot of people acting pretty ridiculous and just out of control in their actions, it's possible that they can have the open container, or obviously getting blown with a BAC of intoxication. So it really is people drawing it to them, because honestly, I wouldn't have time to meet with anybody if they cited every person. They're really identifying those folks that are beyond their own control.
Very young.
For tailgating and stuff. So hopefully that answers your question, I guess, Courtney.
Yeah, the only ones that I think I've seen come through my office in particular were underage, like somebody who was under 21, like literally cracked open a beer, but there was an undercover police officer watching, walked up, said, "How old are you?" And like, that was it. Didn't even take a sip of alcohol, but just like the act of possessing it was enough at a football game. So yeah, what do you want? Okay. So we were talking about on campus, or like sanctions for on-campus housing. So specifically, how can somebody get in trouble if they're in their dorm room, or like what kind of trouble do kids get in while they're in their dorm room drinking or using?
Me to go first, or do you want to go first?
You can go first, because I was trying to think of where I was starting with it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, kind of a broad question, but
Mhm.
basically like the charges that you can get, or pretty much you can get charged with possession of alcohol, possession of controlled substances, paraphernalia, those kind of charges. If that's what you were meaning by that question.
I guess what I want to know, and I think what a lot of students have trouble understanding, especially in the residence halls, is like, when does somebody have a right to knock on my door? When do they have a right to search me? I know this is Alcohol Awareness Week, but a lot of times students ask about marijuana. Like, how can they just knock on my door and ask to search my room when they can't prove that it was my room that smells like marijuana? Like stuff like that. Like, so how does that all work when you're in the residence halls?
So, we don't just come in there for no reason. We go in there because we called or we have to follow up on something. A lot of times we get called by, another classmate or an RA saying that they smell the odor of marijuana. We'll actually sniff around to see if we can pinpoint where it's coming from. We can knock on doors. You open, if we don't smell marijuana coming from your room, then we'll say have a good day. Maybe get your name so we can document it in our report. But it's pretty obvious that whenever there is a smell of marijuana coming from a room, whether that be through the open door or even through the door jamb.
What about drinking? Like, you can smell alcohol also, right?
Yeah. You can get called that, by an RA. Maybe they had gone there for a noise complaint or something and saw alcohol in the room, and then they're required to call us. And then we can come up and try and make contact.
Mm-hmm. I think one time, sometimes a lot of times, like whether it's noise, maybe it's somebody walking from a room and leaving the room and walking out the door down to the bathroom and they're stumbling, along those lines. So those things that it's one of those, if it's reasonable suspicion that something is taking place, is there reason to believe that something is taking place? And so, if somebody knocks on a door to tell somebody to turn it down and they see bottles in a room, if there's bottles in the room, that gives them reason to believe that if there's alcohol in them. But they can also ask along the lines that people have trophy bottles. We know that they have trophy bottles. And for students to say, oh, that's a trophy bottle. In order for it to fall under that trophy bottle area and to be accepted as one, it has to be empty and dry. If there's even a drop in it, obviously it's not dry, and therefore I can't tell when you drank that. You might have just finished it and then put it up on your shelf. And so that's one to make sure that they're completely empty and dry, then you can have a trophy bottle. I probably just wouldn't have one in my room. And
No, not worth it.
Why not get that piece of that? But going back to kind of that, how they could come about, being either coming to your room and searching it or whatnot, the excessive alcohol piece is a sanction that might be given to, or a charge that might be given to a student because they see them, staggering or they're under the influence on campus. And so that excessive alcohol might go with it. More than likely, they started with Amanda or an officer that's given them a breathalyzer to see what their BAC is. And sometimes, more than likely they've done that, or if it's just that the person, they maybe haven't even done that and they can't even stand or walk. But that would then, the excessive alcohol charge that starts with the sanction of a conduct probation for at least a semester, as well as the alcohol education course. And so excessive alcohol is one that we've had students that, I can think of one that I think it was like 6 degrees out and they had passed out against the wall outside the building. And an officer came up to talk to them to say, hey, get in the car, it's freezing out, let's have a conversation. And the student tried to take off running, and we're literally 6 degrees in the cold. I don't think the student had a jacket on, but tried to take off running in the dark. And so it was a challenge there. So that person probably would have been, it was charged with excessive alcohol. Even if they were just outside of the building or something like that, that would still probably be the same, whether that way or if they were passed out in the hallway against the wall, whether it's that doesn't really make a difference on where. But that's an example of a student who, that person had an alcohol issue in general. So, but it happens a lot. It happens. We've had students with University Park that have been up there and caught outside of Beaver Stadium. They left their friends and they were too intoxicated to get back where they were trying to go. Same thing walking outside of the hub. Hub had a gathering, they drank beforehand, they went to the hub, they went to leave, they passed out against the wall, some ended up in the hospital. So those would all be kind of excessive alcohol examples. Unsafe, which is why, like when Anna's talking about, at the beginning of this, that you might not be, you don't have to be a drinker to participate in listening to any of this information. It might not be your cup of tea, which is fine, and that's great. The main point I think a lot of this is to be educated on alcohol and what it can do, as well as how to look out for one another. And that's a big push that we have as a campus too, is just, looking out for one another and having, being active bystanders to get people to safety, or, if you see them drinking too much, what can be done to help stop that? So it doesn't, it could be, of course, you could also be, somebody who drinks most of the time and you're like, you know what, it's Friday night, I'm not going to, like that just happens to be a random night that you're not going to. That could be another reason just to keep out watch for others. So, but the excessive alcohol one is one that it can be very dangerous. We've had students that have, I'll tell this and we'll keep going, but Logan Township showed up to a party up at Nittany Point my first fall here. And as they were walking in to stop this party, 4 guys were walking out and they were holding their buddy arms and legs, one on each corner. And the officer was like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, we're going to take him back to the couch, put him on our couch. And he's like, oh, no. He needs to go to the hospital. So they took him to the hospital and he ended up on a ventilator overnight.
Oh gosh.
And his buddies were going to just take him back and put him on the couch.
Yeah.
And obviously he needed more than that. And we'll continue to talk about what could have happened other ways, other than obviously, death by leaving somebody on a couch. But excessive alcohol can be a dangerous one for sure. So,
yeah. And we talked about that yesterday at the event, being a friend for life. And that means like looking out for signs of alcohol poisoning. McKenna would know. She was there yesterday talking about alcohol poisoning and like what you can possibly do. And we will touch on that later, but I do want to address this. Go ahead.
No, McKenna had a question. I was going to hit the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So McKenna asked, do RAs have the authority to go in, or do they need to call the police if they are suspicious? Amanda, you want that one?
It's different for alcohol and marijuana, if I'm thinking.
I'm not sure what RAs are allowed to do as far as what the school gives them the allowance to do. As far as us, if we do get called, we can't just walk into a room. We can't just, unlock a door unless there's a reason to believe somebody's in danger in the room. We can't just walk into a room, but we do have ways to go about getting into rooms. So basically, if I have enough probable cause, I can apply for a search warrant, which is approved by the district attorney and then approved by a judge. And then I'd be able to go into that room without consent of the residents there. That's a process. It takes a little while, but it's something we do. I mean, we just did it the other night.
I know that RAs wise, RA and housing staff, if they have reason to believe that there's alcohol in a room, they can ask for, they'll step in, be there, is there alcohol? And then, please provide it and put it in the center of the room is what they'll ask a lot of times. And then if they believe, that there's stuff in there and then somebody's not complying, then they'll call university police to respond to that. So first, they'll ask I don't believe RAs will search the room here. But if there is non-compliance by the residents in the room, they will call university police to then come and take action the rest of the way. That's a big difference between, I did residence halls 15 years someplace else, and we searched your room as a housing staff. We didn't need police. I search it for anything that I wanted to. But that's the difference between where I was at and versus Penn State. But, and then Jake followed up with a question of, if you are walking around late at night, whether you are intoxicated or not, can a police officer question what you're doing out so late at night and if you're intoxicated?
Yes, we can stop and talk to anybody. There's different levels of what this one would be basically a mere encounter. So basically we could, we can go up and talk to anybody, say hi, what are you up to? If we don't have any reasonable suspicion to believe that a crime is occurring, you don't have to talk to us. You can walk away. And I mean, that's something we know. But if we go up and say, hi, how are you doing? And then can, tell that you're under 21 and smell alcohol coming from you, then that raises the level to reasonable suspicion. And then at that point, it's a different level. We can stay and talk to you.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question, Jake.
All right, let's keep going. And then if it doesn't, you can chime back in. Good questions, all. Thank you.
Well, I think we kind of already answered this, so I'm going to skip this, but obviously we now know that you can get in trouble for being intoxicated on campus, just like you can get in trouble for being intoxicated like in public. Okay, we've got, if I get in trouble off campus, do I still get in trouble through the university? Jennifer?
Very much so. Some students, like I said, we just got 6 citations from University Park, actually from the State College Police, not from University Park Police up there, from State College Police. And so ours come from any local law enforcement's, and then therefore we look at it through our code of conduct. We don't, even though you might have been cited by police officers and then say, more than likely we've already met and had our conversation and sanctions and charges have been issued. Some students will come back around and say, well, I got expunged from that. And then they'll give us their expungement papers. We'll keep those and put them on file to show that they were expunged by an outside entity. However, it won't erase your conduct charge that you had. And so a lot of the ones, like I said, the residence life has a conduct piece where they meet with their own students. And so I oversee that part. And so they too are case managers in conduct. But then I deal with, majority of the times deal with all off-campus students or anybody that's outside of the residence halls as they violate, whether they're in Port Sky or Adler at an intramural field, or like I said, in tailgating. So I would foresee that as of next Saturday, by next Tuesday, we will have a larger number of alcohol violations based on what's going to take place at a football game or during a football game next Saturday. So just as a heads up there, but yes, you can. If you are in, just an example, and this is one that they give, if you happen to be home and you're over by Philly, or if you're home and it's up by New York, and if it is, if you violate the code and we learn about it, you could be held to the code of conduct standards for Penn State. Say you had a DUI back home, that's significant enough for us that you need to be held to our standards at Penn State. Because as I talk to students, I say that you're considered a Penn State student no matter where you're at. And as soon as you sign the agreement and do the letter of acceptance for Penn State, you're considered a student. So I've even talked to students who haven't even got to our campus yet when they have acted upon something back home or via online with other incoming students. I mean, there isn't really a jurisdictional lines for that. So
yeah,
heads up.
We've had several. I mean, I've only been here now a little over a year, but even in my time here, I've seen several students get possession of marijuana or possession of paraphernalia off campus. So those are 2 misdemeanors like that. Those are pretty big deals. And then also have to go through ARD and go through our program. And it's a pain in the butt, and you absolutely do get in trouble. You're held accountable by Penn State.
Yeah, I had 2 students at the end of my first year that both were caught for distribution of marijuana. It was any from wax to Xanax to marijuana itself, pounds of marijuana, thousands of dollars in possession. And those are both off-campus students. And I can't even remember where they live, but they were here in Altoona. But they ended up being suspension for multiple years for those violations. And so, yeah, there isn't any jurisdictional line. So just because I think somebody even yesterday I heard had a situation in like Port Sky here on campus, and well, they can't do anything to me. I don't live on campus. They can't do anything. I'm an off-campus student. And I was like, oh, hold on. So there's an appointment scheduled. Don't worry. Don't just obviously be aware. It doesn't matter if you're an on-campus student or off-campus student. You're still held to our policies. So
yeah, for sure. So if they do get in trouble locally, and this is where I think, because a lot of our students are from Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New York, California, I mean, any number of places, and they get in trouble locally, right? So they're like at an off-campus party or whatever. A lot of them have questions about the court process, like what their charges mean, where do they have to go? Who do they have to see? Do they need a lawyer? Can you help us out with that, Amanda?
I can. So there are two different places that you could have to go to court. If you get charged with either on campus or in Altoona City, you go to Judge D'Antonio's office, and that is at 615 4th Street. So that's kind of on the other side of the city. If you get in trouble in Logan Township, you would have to go to Judge Junio's office, which is kind of over by the mall. So, depending on the charge, depending on the crime of what you're charged with, it could be what's called a summary offense, which is a citation. So underage drinking, disorderly conduct, public drunkenness, they're all summary offenses. And those you can choose to either plead guilty or not guilty to. If you plead guilty, you have to go through the sanctions of whatever the court imposes. If you plead not guilty, you'll go down and you'll have a hearing at one of those magistrates' office. The arresting officer and any witnesses will be there, and everybody will testify, and the judge will then decide whether you're guilty or not guilty. If you are charged with and it's up to you at that point with the summary level, whether you want to have an attorney or not. It's not required, but you obviously have that right. The attorney could come to the court hearing too. Then if you're charged with a misdemeanor or higher, it's highly recommended that you have an attorney, and it's very rare that you go to a court hearing and not have an attorney. Same places, the same hearings, or the hearings are at the same places, the same magistrates, depending on which jurisdiction you were in trouble in. But if you are charged with a misdemeanor or a felony, there will be a hearing set, and you'll have to go to that. Even if you get arrested at the end of the semester and you go home, you still would have to come back to go to your hearing. We can't transfer it out to whichever jurisdiction you're in. So if you're in California and you live in California, you go home for the semester, a lot of times we'll try and work on, continuing it enough to get till you get back to school. But that doesn't always work out. So you may have to come back at that time.
Yeah, I think that a lot of kids don't realize that, or a lot of students. I mean, that's not something I thought about when I was a Penn State student. Like, my consequences follow me no matter where I go. I'm still held accountable here.
The one question I always get asked is, as I meet with students, and I try to say, we are separate from law enforcement. So the conduct office, even though we're both parts of the university, we both have our separate outcomes. And so Amanda might give a citation for this, and then I will charge for this. And like I said, even if one gets expunged or whatnot, you still have responsibility of the other one. And so just to know that both are probably consequences that you're going to have to go through as you violate that policy when it comes to drug, alcohol, assault, anything like that. And certain types of harassment, it just depends on what the charge that they might give, which would violate our policy. So
I think one more maybe important thing to note right now is that the difference between the consequences of a summary offense versus misdemeanors. And you guys, please jump in. But summary offenses usually end up being like a fine, right? Like you plead guilty, pay a fine, you're on your way. It's on your record, but you're on your way. And then if you have a misdemeanor, which people very often get to at a clip because of possession of marijuana and then possession of paraphernalia, like even if you have like little flakes in a grinder, there's 2 misdemeanor charges. And that's a pretty hefty fine, and that can also lead to probation. And then again, like that extra fee if you wanted to do ARD, which is if you want your record to be expunged later on. So it's like very costly, and then misdemeanors, they're sticky. They stick around forever.
And the thing with ARD too is you only get one of those in your lifetime. So if you get caught 2 times with a small amount of marijuana and paraphernalia, and you used your ARD, you don't get another one.
Right. Your charge is there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me about the underage drinking laws in general?
So underage drinking, it has a big long name, and it is purchase, possession. Wait, I'm sorry. Let me just go through this. If a person is less than 21 years of age and you attempt to purchase, consume, possess, or transport any liquor or malt or brewed beverages, that person can be charged with what we call the underage drinking violation. It's a big long name, but just that's basically what it is. It's easier to say underage drinking. So we talked about the AWARE program a little bit ago. Usually the first time the judge will let you do the AWARE program, and that'll be enough to have it taken off your record, or to have you found, trying to think what the word is. I think it's not expunged immediately with that AWARE program, I don't believe.
I think it's from 21.
I think you're right. If you don't get in trouble again, then it gets off your record. That's not something the judge has to give to you. They're allowed to, but they're not required to. So, you know, even if it is your first offense, they're not required to offer that. We also have to notify parents if anybody under 21 is charged with underage drinking. So say you're 19 and you're charged with the underage drinking, your parents still get notified, even though you're technically an adult. For the alcohol violation, you're still considered a minor.
Mm-hmm. I would copy that same answer, as far as we don't contact your parents on many of our conduct related issues. However, when it's related to alcohol or drugs, we are required to contact your parents. And so there is a letter that goes home to your parents to let them know that these are the charges and sanctions that have taken place. But the only ones we do that for are alcohol and drugs. So just as a heads up there, that is on our document that we provide students, that takes place.
Yeah, I'm sure not a lot of students know that either. Because they think.
No,
18
I do
is
tell them,
adult.
they're like, you know, are you gonna, you know, this will be mailed home. If you beat that home, that's your choice. If you beat the letter to the mailbox, kind of deal. But it's best to have the conversation, because we really say it as far as the important part is for us to prevent this behavior from happening again. And so we want to partner with your family to have conversations that can prevent this from happening. So that's why they're informed of what has taken place. So then they can have conversations to hopefully prevent it from happening in the future, because we want you to stay a Penn State student. And if you continue to violate that policy related to alcohol or drugs, whichever it might be, you might not be a Penn State student. So for very long.
And then as far as DUI, a person can be charged with a DUI if they operate or in actual physical control of a vehicle. So maybe somebody was drinking, drove down to Sheets, have their car on, passed out in their car, and they're sitting in there. That's enough to be actual physical control. The officer doesn't actually have to see you driving the vehicle. You can still get charged with a DUI. For anyone under the age of 21, your blood alcohol level has to be a 0.02 or higher, which is not very much at all. And that's within 2 hours after the person has been driving or in actual physical control. For anyone 21 years of age or older in Pennsylvania, it's 0.08 or higher, you can be charged. And another thing to note too is if you are arrested for DUI or for the suspicion of DUI and you refuse to do the blood or the breath test, your driver's license automatically gets suspended, and then you're still charged with the DUI.
I always say, don't refuse the blood test.
No.
Just don't ever, just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I had in my very old job, I did a DUI group for outpatient drug and alcohol treatment. And one guy said, I wasn't drinking, like my BAC was definitely below, but I said, I want to talk about taking the blood test. And they took that as a refusal. And so he automatically got a DUI and his license suspended for a year, but simply because of that act of not wanting to take it right away.
Right, because even whenever we arrest somebody for suspicion of DUI, we take them for the breath or blood. We read them, it's called the DL-26 form, and it's basically their rights. And it explains in there that they do not have the right to talk to an attorney before deciding whether they're going to take the test. And if they ask to talk to anyone prior to, that's going to be, it says it right there, that's going to be a refusal. And it says we read it right to them. We have to read it verbatim, word for word. And, that's part of it.
Something to consider. obviously there's no reason in the world to ever get behind the wheel after you've had anything to drink. Unfortunately, it happens. That's something to like note for sure. Is like just take the blood test.
I also wanted to talk too. A lot of people don't realize this, but you can be charged with a DUI for a prescription something that you were prescribed by your doctor. If it makes you impaired enough that you can't be driving a vehicle, a lot of times you'll see on the bottle, do not operate heavy machinery, because it may affect your ability to safely operate a vehicle. So that's what's in there, and people can get arrested for that. I mean, I've had people coming back from, the methadone clinic that don't think that they can get arrested for a DUI, but they crashed into a parked car.
Yeah.
That's definitely not being capable of safely driving.
Yeah. I also worked at a methadone clinic in my past career. And yeah, people are not always understanding that even though I have a prescription for Xanax, doesn't mean I get to take a handful at a time and get behind the wheel. Like I can take Xanax like the way it's prescribed to me as long as I'm not under the influence, but the second that like it impairs me enough to, then I get a DUI. It's a pretty serious one too.
I think two pieces with it. We talk about it with BDAP too, but the medical marijuana cards right now. So a lot of people, I have medical marijuana card. That means I'm covered. I would tell you at our university, we do not accept the medical marijuana card until it becomes pretty much federally approved. And
which is never going to happen.
Yeah. So currently, we have students that say that, and what we tell them is then, well, you need to keep your marijuana supply or whatever, your medical marijuana, you need to keep that in another location off campus. So, I mean, I know it's a challenge, but at the same time, until it's approved federally, it won't be accepted on our campus because of federal dollars received. So
that's what I tell a lot of students about, like, just because you're over the age of 21 doesn't mean you get to drink on campus too. It's very similar to that. So just because you're allowed to have medical marijuana, whatever that might be, doesn't mean you can have it on campus. It's not the same thing. Yeah, good distinction. Okay, so let's talk about medical amnesty and responsible action protocol. Whoever wants to go with that.
I can start. So the medical amnesty. So basically what it says is if you are in good faith, call or believes you are the first person to call 911, police, ambulance, and give your name, and you stay with the person to prevent the person's death or serious injury, then the caller is immune from prosecution from consumption of possession of alcohol. So basically what that means is if you see your friend is passed out, you're concerned for them, you call, and you're the first person or believe you're the first person to call, and you have to give your name and stay there with the person until either police or the ambulance, until the police arrive. Then you will be, even if you were drinking, you will be exempt from prosecution, so you can't get arrested. Now, if any of those elements aren't there, if you refuse to give your name, or if you won't stay with the person, or if 30 people at a party call, that's not good enough. It has to be the first person to call. So it's very similar also to our drug overdose law. If somebody calls to report a drug overdose and they provide their name, stay with the patient, they can be immune from certain offenses. This would be the possession of the drugs, possession of paraphernalia. The amnesty does not apply though. However, if there is enough evidence on scene to show that the person was in possession with intent to deliver. So basically that means if there's, enough pills or enough packaging material to say that they're selling the drugs, then that immunity is out the window.
I'd add on to that. So at the university, it's called responsible action protocol. And so that is, similar to what Amanda has explained with medical amnesty. So it's you calling for your friend or somebody, you don't even have to know them. It's just a peer. And so responsible action taken by calling authorities and then meeting one or more of the criteria below, or meeting one of the criteria. And so you can call for yourself. And so if you feel that you need help and you call for yourself, that is one way that falls under responsible action protocol. Obviously, it's best to call for yourself instead of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble, because that's a huge piece with what we run across with students. One of the statistics I use is in my first year, we had it, responsible action protocol was called 3 times in the fall and 3 times in the spring. And I believe in all those cases and was somebody calling for somebody else. But I'm assuming if you've been to a gathering at Penn State, you would probably say that that could be used 3 times in a weekend, is when, you know, that could actually be used. So the fact that it was only used 3 times is sad to me, because a lot of folks, well, I don't want to get in trouble. And so they'd rather let somebody potentially die by not taking action, or none of my business because they're passed out in the corner and I don't really know them. None of my business, you know. That's going back to that active bystander piece and looking out for one another. A student who seeks medical assistance for a peer suffering from alcohol or drug overdose related problems and remains with that peer until appropriate authorities arrive. So similar as Amanda just said, so you can be a peer, you call for yourself, you can call for a peer. And then the other part of the criteria is a student suffering from alcohol overdose, alcohol or drug related overdose for whom another student seeks assistance, and where the individual believes they are the first caller, as Amanda said, and believes provides the name, and not subject to will also not be subject to conduct action or for alcohol violation. So what essentially is going to happen is that there won't be a charge for conduct. However, we're going to ask those involved, meaning if it is you call for yourself, it'd be an alcohol education course for yourself. If you're calling for somebody else, it would be an alcohol education course for the caller as well as for the person that needs assistance. But the fee will be waived. There's no charge for it. And so what we're really wanting to do is make sure that students know that there isn't going to be a consequence other than just alcohol education, you know. And if it's a 2-hour course for 2 days and that's the outcome, then so be it. Now you can make a better informed decision when you choose to drink or somebody else chooses to drink next time. The one part that would maybe violate is if behaviors took place that are outside of alcohol and drugs. So instead of somebody just being intoxicated, say they then got in a fight and beat somebody up while they needed assistance, that or vandalism, assault, furnishing to minors, those pieces could still have charges that go with it, because they are outside of just solely the intoxication piece or the overdose piece. So I hope that makes sense. But the big piece is call to get help, because if you think that they need it, they probably do. You know, we want to make sure that everybody enjoys the next party next time, if that's what they choose to do. So that is the responsible action protocol, and I hope you choose to use it and help somebody else out or yourself.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we have all heard stories about times where you thought like you really should have been used, or God, I wish that didn't have to happen, or that somebody could have been there to help that person. Yeah. And I think when you were talking about opiate or like drug overdoses in general, I think the point of this law is to say, like, we want you to have to live. Like, you shouldn't have to die because of this, or because you're afraid of receiving a charge. Your life matters more than the charges we would give you.
Yeah, I had a friend from college. She called me 2 years ago, and I've been out of college for almost 20 years. And she thanked me for saving her life, because she was so intoxicated one night that, I mean, she was puking up every color. No, you know, whatever went down came out. You know, ready to take her to the hospital or whatnot. And if we would have just left her be, she wouldn't have probably been alive. And so it's kind of one of those heavy things that you're like, I was 18, we were stupid, we were 2 months into school, you know, and she wanted to prove a point by drinking a bottle of Jack, and she drank all but an inch of that bottle by herself, you know, and that's in one party night setting. And so it was scary as a freshman to have to deal with that, or what do we do with her, you know? And so having her call so many years later, and she's a teacher administrator at a school district, and calls to thank me. It's kind of but you don't wait 20 years for somebody to call in to do that. Make sure you do something on the front side. So
yeah, thank you. Okay, so last couple of questions, just very briefly, like one piece of advice as a college student who is drinking. Like, can we each give one? Maybe mine would be to set a limit and do not exceed that limit. I think that's like the most important rule. Know what your limit is. Do not exceed it for any reason.
I'd say always know where your drink is coming from. That way you know what's in it.
I think similar to maybe Anna's is if you're going with a group of folks, make sure you all know that limit for each other and are open to having somebody cut you off.
Okay.
Allow somebody else to cut you off and be open and accepting of that because obviously they're telling you that for a reason.
Awesome. Okay. So the last couple of questions I think will be interesting. What can you tell us, like a story, like maybe an interesting or crazy or whatever story about being a police officer, or something that you have seen that you think we should know about?
So I have one for drugs and one for alcohol. So when I worked for the city of Altoona, I was training a new employee. We were driving down the road and this guy just starts screaming at the top of his lungs. So we back around to see, what's going on. And he starts just like flipping out, telling me that there's people after him with knives and guns. And I'm like looking around like, I don't see anybody. Then he goes on to tell me that by his truck that there were clowns in a garbage can. And I was like, wait a minute. And then he proceeded to tell me that he sniffed something off of his friend's counter, which just happened to be that. So, and then actually just 2 weeks ago, I go to court on Thursday for it. I had a guy, I had to handle a call for Logan Township and just right off campus, right on Juniata Gap. And he was acting suspicious, so somebody called and, we get to talk to him. He tells me he's training for the Olympics and he can outrun the police car. He also was high on meth. Another story I had was about alcohol. I worked for Winver Police a long time ago. I got a call for a vehicle accident, and I get called for a vehicle accident with a man pinned under a truck. So when your adrenaline rushes, you have the tunnel vision. So basically you can't, your peripheral vision isn't out there so good, and you're just kind of going for, what you're called for. So I go out, I put my car across the road and I look over and I see this gentleman. He went flying out of the window, landed on the ground, and the truck landed on top of him. I mean, he was dead instantly. And then I had that tunnel vision. I knew that there was a guy under a truck, so I went straight for that. Well, then one of the witnesses said, there's another guy over there. And I never even saw the other gentleman laying on the road, like a couple feet away. He was also deceased. And then once I looked over and I saw the gentleman that was laying there, I realized who the guy in the truck was because we had interactions with them several times. They both just got thrown out of the truck and were killed instantly. It was a father and son. The son was driving. His blood alcohol level was at 0.333. And that was it was right before school let out, high school let out. We had to redirect the buses around it.
So is it during the day?
Oh my gosh, like afternoon.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like 3 o'clock, 3:15, something like that.
I have one crazy one to
like
share. So I'm from the Midwest and I'm by a major Big Ten university and a student there because I was doing conduct at the time as well. It was one of those that I paid attention to. But 21st birthday, went out with buddies to have fun, 21 shots, all that kind of stuff, drinking wise. The next morning they found him in a winter coat and just underwear. And they, did obviously found him, investigation, yada, yada, because he had killed a 96-year-old man in his apartment. So he entered into a stranger's apartment, killed this older man, 90 something, and then spent the rest of it. I think he was in for maybe 6 years for involuntary manslaughter, but killed somebody on his 21st birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Simply because he drank too much alcohol.
And blacked out to where he didn't know. And so it's one of those that he now, since he's been let go, he goes around and talks to students and talks to and things like that for those types of pieces. So yeah, not a great way to experience college. And so
what a powerful story. That's alarming. This is not like a crazy personal story. I always share it because I was in college at the time that it happened. And I'm sure you guys, maybe all of you are familiar with Joe Dado, the freshman student in 2009. Are you guys familiar with him, his story? Let me tell you about him. He was a freshman student, fall semester 2009. I was a junior at University Park. And I remember like my apartment overlooked Burroughs. I lived above the Starbucks on West College Avenue. So I could see Burroughs and I could see classroom buildings from my apartment. And I woke up in the morning and the news publication Onward State, like you read that every morning just as a Penn State student. And I saw like student missing for 24 hours, blah, blah, blah. And I looked out my window and there was a helicopter and like the street was blocked off. I later found out that Joe Dado was at a frat party and had too much to drink. They believe that he was blacked out. His tolerance was very low at that point. I don't think he was a drinker in general. He left the frat house at 3 a.m. alone. Despite there being people there to have walked home with him, he left alone and ended up in a maintenance stairwell in between two classroom buildings, fell down the stairs and died. And he was missing for over 30 hours. And again, like that is simply because he had too much to drink and then didn't stay with the same friend group or didn't walk home with somebody or so many things that were preventable. And like when I think about like those are such life-changing things that we think cannot possibly happen to us. And it like clearly it can, and that it's just really alarming. That's all because of our choice to ingest too much alcohol.
We had a student 2 or 3 years ago on, Amanda, what's the road? I'm blanking on the backside of campus, Nittany Point, Res House.
When?
Gwen Road, yeah. So on Gwen, they attended a party on Gwen, went to walk from there to the campus. Like they walked away from the party. And this was another one of those like 5 degrees type nights. We called in the dogs because they could not find the student at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., parents on their way from out of state. And so we had to call in the dogs to locate a student. And that was also intoxication and walking away by themselves. So I remember personally leaving and getting pissed at parties and drinking and doing stupid stuff to where I try to go be by myself. But yeah, one of those stupid decisions could always take a turn, just as we've given examples tonight. So
That was a very cold night. I
yes.
walked from the entire distance from where she was located to back to campus.
Do you mind me asking where was the student located?
I believe it was over. I'm trying to think exactly where it was.
Hiding?
It was more than. She walked into the wrong house.
Oh,
And
no.
passed out. Wrong house and passed out and then woke up.
Gosh.
It was well over a mile away.
But that's also dangerous because I mean, I live in a house by myself. I have a gun. Somebody walks into my house, and that happens often. That happens often when I've heard stories about people are like, they wake up and there's somebody laying on their couch and they're like, what are you doing? Oh, I thought this was Jimmy's house and I just needed a place to crash and pass out. So not the safest of moves when it comes to those.
One of our students, I don't know when it was in University Park and walked into the wrong dorm room because they didn't know where they were so drunk. They didn't know where they were going and got in trouble because they entered the wrong dorm room. And that's like very scary. That's not something you want to put somebody else through. It's also very dangerous for you to be that intoxicated and not know how to get home. So yeah, that's a kind of a sour way to end this, but I do want to wrap up and give these three any opportunities to ask any more questions. You guys have asked like excellent questions so far. I'm very grateful that you guys participated. Is there anything else that you guys want to ask or add? No? Okay. Thanks, Courtney.
Courtney says, none for me.
Like I said, this will be uploaded to YouTube at some time this week. Thank you, Jake. So if you guys have any questions or if you want to share this with people that you know, if they have any questions about the conduct process or what the role of a police officer on campus is, you can see my name there. You can email me at any time. Oh yeah, there you go. Email Amanda if you have any questions. Jennifer looks like she's typing in hers.
I'm in the dark and I can't see my fingers, so I cheat.
But we really appreciate you guys coming, and I hope that you learned something or walked away with a piece of information that will be useful for you or the people that you know on campus. Do you guys have anything else you want to add?
Oh, no, I don't, other than I sent it directly to somebody and not over to all. I'm a little slow over here. All right, there we go to everyone. But no, I think it's just one of those that just watching out for one another and then making sure that you know your limit, or at least pay attention to what you're doing. Being able to keep your head in that, and if you're going to choose to drink alcohol. And I think lastly, if there is you or somebody you know that can't control that alcohol piece, can't control their drinking, need to feel that they need to drink every weekend, and it's one of those that they need to do it versus kind of like a want, there's a difference, I think, in the two. That they need to, they don't know that difference, that it's okay to ask for help, whether it's through any one of us that are here, or asking asking a friend, or if you know of a friend who you think needs it but won't come forward, share that with, reach out to Anna and say, hey, I have a friend, I think they need some help. I think they're going to be, and the thing is, if they get pissed at you, they get pissed at you. You're doing it for the right reasons. If you believe that they need that help and you're doing it for the right reasons, if they're pissed, that's fine. And if they don't want it, then you've done what you could. But you don't need to babysit them every weekend and things like that, to have it fall on you. But do understand that if you need help or if somebody else needs help, it's okay to ask for them or for yourself.
I just wanted to add too that, I do appreciate you guys coming on here and talking with us. Police officers are here. Everybody that I know has gotten into this job to be able to help people. Yeah, we do have to make arrests and stuff like that, but our number one priority for ourselves is to be able to help people. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to approach one of us, or if you see us, driving on campus or whatever, you can wave to us. You don't have to, maybe not the one finger wave, but just, you can say hi and stuff like that. You don't have to look the other way and be afraid of us. We're really here to help you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you all.
I hope you have a good night. It was nice to talk to you.